What is the Buddha nature? What is the Buddha nature?
Steven Seagal is a very, very naughty man. From mistreating his fellow stuntmen, being routinely late to his job, promoting a scammy cryptocurrency, across connections with the Gambino family, being accused of running over a puppy while driving a tank through someone's front gate, excessively sitting at his job, being Putin's warmongering puppet, all the way over to being accused of sexual harassment and even sex trafficking. And there are plenty of videos already made on this lost Teletubby and his sleazy lifestyle, covering in detail all but one topic. How much exactly does Fred sit in his movies? A lot? Most of the time? Almost always? No. Those answers won't cut it for my self-ostracized and desolate basement-dwelling train wreck of a failing existence. So, I watched all 53 of Fred's movies, counted all the scenes he's in, and made an unnecessarily elaborate Excel spreadsheet pinpointing the statistics of Fred's masterful laziness expressed to his dedicated affinity to warming up beds, chairs, car seats, and couches with his bum-bum. As many, so did I grow up watching Fred's movies and absolutely admired them as a kid. They were so pointlessly violent and violently fun, with superficial and one-dimensional violent protagonists always being these tremendously cool and flawless violent action heroes, almost as if envisioned and written by a 9-year-old's mind stuck in a grown man's wobbly body. And therefore, these movies fit perfectly into my own 9-year-old daydreams of majestically saving the day from super evil terrorists invading my elementary school by violently breaking their bones and emptying clip after clip into their motionless bodies. A scenario deemed but a harmless fantasy back in the mid-90s. Over the years, I of course gained more insight into Fred's background and started viewing his movies merely as silly entertainment to a bad movies connoisseur. Yet, my obsession with a giant toddler almost suffocating every time he tries to utter a sentence never faded. It was at an all-time high back in 2019 when I learned of Fred doing a tour of miraculous evenings where he would selfishly talk about himself for hours. You don't think twice about seeing Fred in person, so my buddy the defector and I immediately, no hesitations or questions asked, bought tickets to see a mumbling and bumbling bag of pure-blooded lard generously masturbate its inflated ego in front of an audience of consenting adults. The cheapest tickets, which beside allowing you to look at Fred for the duration of his enchanting and self-pleasuring ego trip, would also grant you the overwhelming possibility of submitting a question for the Q&A portion of the evening. Higher-priced tickets were separated into a few tiers. VIP would additionally get you a photo with Fred. Gold granted you on top of all a personally signed limited memorabilia item of his choosing, an upgrade frame, whatever that means, and priority seating. Platinum, the highest tier for no other price than £1,000, would, with all the above mentioned, permit you to be reborn through the transcendent experience of a private meal with Fred Seagals. Needless to say, but I'll say it anyways, Def and I were a bit short for that tier. A bit short of all tiers beside the basic peasants package. Nevertheless, it genuinely was an event both Def and I, rightfully and deservingly so, put on the highest of pedestals in our lives. Much like an excited, joyful child being lifted by their parent is excitedly putting up the shiny star on top of a bright Christmas tree promising warmth, love, understanding, and loads of expensive toys. It was truly supposed to be the bestest day of our lives, there's absolutely no denying that. Most people would attribute such a day to the miraculous event that is the birth of their baby children. But can a baby do this? Or this? I didn't think so. It wasn't long before the excitement-filled balloons would violently burst like a human skull penetrated by a raging sniper bullet, hissing pristine acid on our parade of unpolluted happiness. We received an email that the event had been cancelled. No explanation, no excuse, no reasoning would change the fact that Steven Seagal himself, personally, shattered our naive porcelain hearts, never to fully be glued back together ever again. We did get our money back, so at least there's that. Still, that cold, sorrowful day gave birth to a fierce vengeance I did not know then how to exact, and it took but 3 full years to finally consolidate a proper way to unequivocally portray Fred as the fraud we all knew he always was, but simply lacked the weighty piece of evidence to prove so. Thus, a spreadsheet was forged, out of honest rage and sadness. The methodology used for the spreadsheet certainly has its flaws. I'm sure in several cases I counted wrongly what would constitute a scene, and you should take these numbers with a discrepancy in mind of, let's say, ±2. Also, my math isn't the best, as I still do all the basic mathematical operations with my fingers. Instances I counted as sitting were if he was obviously sitting, kneeling, squatting, lying down, leaning against something, or if I didn't see the lower part of his body, as in most cases it looks like, and I feel I'm in the right to assume that, he's sitting. If he was sitting briefly at the beginning of a scene and then gets up, I didn't count it as sitting. If he was walking and just sits at the end of a scene and we cut to something else, it didn't count it as sitting. But if he was sitting for more than 5 seconds in a scene,
it's a peddling.
If I didn't see him fully and clearly from up front, just a silhouette, or from behind, I didn't count it, as in 90.78 out of 10 cases it's not actually him but rather a body double or stuntman. I've said that I watched all 53 of his movies. This is up to 2019, with 2 movies still sitting in pre-production as of the recording of this video. This is also not including his cameo in My Giant due to it just being a cameo, as well as his appearance in Roseanne due to it just being a guest appearance. I also didn't count the short Sheep Impact due to it being a 4-minute short, and in the same vein but opposite side of the spectrum, I didn't count the show True Justice due to it containing 27 episodes that vary in length from 45 minutes to an hour, a few being 2-parters even amounting to 90 minutes. In 19 movies, Fred has more standing scenes than sitting scenes. In 30 movies, however, he is predominantly sitting, with 4 movies having the same amount of sitting and standing scenes. So overall, Fred has a higher count of movies in which he has more sitting scenes than standing scenes. And therefore, case closed. I wish you all a pleasant day. But if we take a look at the actual scene count from all of his movies, which is 1,375 scenes, we see that he has overall more standing scenes than sitting scenes, leading by 21. Now how is that possible? More movies with sitting scenes but more standing scenes overall? I heard nobody ask. Well, this is mostly due to his early years in movies like Under Siege, Above the Law, and Against the Dark for some reason, which propelled the standing scenes number well high up. He would slowly start doing less and less scenes per movie in general as the years went by, making it difficult to beat this highly set threshold from early on. And the movie with most standing scenes overall is Above the Law, with 32 standing scenes out of 35 overall Seagal scenes, while he has most sitting scenes in the movie Belly of the Beast, counting 29 sitting scenes out of 60 Seagal scenes. For Above the Law, this is no surprise, as it's a movie from very early in his career, and on top of that, one of the 2 movies most agree on genuinely being Fred's best films, meaning he probably actually put some effort into it. With Belly of the Beast, I was a bit surprised, as it's a movie from 2003, so before all the major law-related fiascos, and before he'd taken to making 1 trillion movies per year as he did in 2016. I was expecting the movie with most sitting scenes to be from the later part of his career, but this can potentially be explained by the overall reduction in scenes in general over the years. So just to clear things up, we have to keep in mind when viewing purely the numbers of standing and sitting scenes per movie, they do not represent a very clear picture, as the number of overall scenes Fred is in decreased on average by 0.85 scenes per year. So having 19 sitting scenes in Urban Justice sounds a lot compared to just 3 sitting scenes in Got Shot Straight. However, there is 19 sitting out of 33 overall Seagal scenes in Urban Justice versus 3 sitting out of 4 overall Steven scenes in Got Shot Straight, meaning that in Urban Justice he was sitting only 57.58% of all his scenes, whereas in Got Shot Straight that percentage is a bit higher at 75%. Now, taking that into consideration, we get that he is sitting the most in Beyond the Law, sitting in 76.92% of all his scenes, while standing the most in Against the Dark with a perfect 100%. We also have Clementine and The Onion movie with a 100% standing rate, but he is in those films for 2 and 3 scenes respectively, so it's barely something to write home about. Beyond the Law is so far his latest release from 2019, so I was not surprised by it having the highest percentage of sitting scenes. Against the Dark is, however, such a peculiar case in all of his filmography. It is a movie from 2009, at a time when he already made it very clear there being a steady deterioration of quality in his movies. In this movie, he plays a vampire hunter, which is quite an odd character choice for him to play to begin with, and his overall screen time is only 24 minutes, which is very much like the later era of his declining career, with him appearing in only 14 scenes of this movie, in all of which he is standing. I'm not sure what exactly happened to make Fred do this movie, but it's certainly an odd egg from the mid of his career, and I do have to honestly say there are a couple of nice scenes where he does violent things to bad vampires. As for overall number of scenes, Fred's top scene count in a movie is 60 scenes in Belly of the Beast, while the last place goes to Clementine with him appearing in only 2 scenes. Belly of the Beast is from 2003, so it does kind of feel like it fits his profile of doing more scenes in the first 20 years of his career, while in movies from 2009 and onwards his overall scene count would not surpass 25 within a movie. Clementine is again a weird one, a South Korean film from 2004, just a year after his highest scene counting movie, where Fred only appears at the very end. They still put his face on the poster and advertise it as him starring, obviously to cash in on his name, but I presume he was just too tired from those 60 scenes he did a year prior to be fully dedicated to this project. Generally speaking, it is very obvious from each chart that Fred never had anything going as far as invested effort is concerned. Overall scene count, standing scene count, sitting scene count, percentage of standing scenes all show a firm and steady downward trend, while percentage of sitting scene per movie show an unshakably rising course. Bear in mind, please, Fred is a so-called action star starring in action movies, and he has made it his conscious career choice to star specifically in nothing but action movies. You don't want your action hero to have more action movies spilling over his indented belt in which he is sitting. You don't want any of an action star's filmography to contain action movies where they are predominantly sitting, because sitting is the complete opposite of what action is. Unless you're of course considering Fred's iconic chair foo technique to be comparable to what we would understand and observe as action.
Shall we walk a bit?
Let's sit here.
After all this, you might ask, and rightfully so, well, Ange, so fucking what? And I'd agree. There's absolutely no hefty conclusion from all of this. At least not a unique one. This whole project of mine, as I like to title it in order to make it seem more mature and sophisticated, or for giving a vague purpose to myself and bare minimum of a meaningful reason to get up in the morning, where I tracked Fred's sitting scene, started out entirely as a joke during a Seagal movie marathon. And then it kinda just snowballed from there, and I seem to have lost control at one point, getting catapulted 6 months into the future with all this data just sitting on my hard drive, being alone, scared and confused, asking myself in the middle of the night, how are you still surprised that people laugh at you? Initially, I wanted to somehow tie all this together with Seagal's delusions of him being the savior of humanity and just overall bestest person on earth, a philanthrope, being a man of the people for the people, while viewing himself as nothing short of a deity through his own egoistic prism through which he, I believe, views life and the universe in general. In the very least, he's narcissistic enough to not see the harm he's causing others, and is well versed in upholding a cornucopia of lies whenever he opens his greasy mouth to let slimy words slide through the tiny cracks in the food he's perennially chewing on and devouring. Yet the observable and objective reality with all the lawsuits, sexual harassment and human trafficking accusations, mistreatment of fellow actors and stuntmen, his love and devotion to Putin, and justification and defense of Putin's war on Ukraine, that reality kind of paints him as a very, very naughty man. However, me spending my reclusive spare time counting movie scenes in which he is sitting does not back any of these claims. The only thing I can now at last say for certain with some bulky, albeit potentially flawed, statistical evidence is that Frederick Seagal is a lazy hack fraud, and I have the numbers to prove it. So if anyone ever asks you, how much do you think Steven Seagal actually sits in his movies? You can take them by surprise and confidently answer, he sits in exactly 677 out of 1,375 scenes. That is 49.24% of all his movie scenes. And when they subsequently ask you to elaborate your disturbingly specific answer, you can tell them the mythical tale of a random, somewhat awkward, balding dude on YouTube who, whenever people at work would ask him, so Ange, what are your plans for the weekend? He'd of course tell them he's just gonna hang out with some friends, chill, have fun, socialize. Nothing special, you know, just normal human things, what normally normal humans do to be normal. But in reality, he's leaning his crooked spine over his rickety desk in a somber and moldy solitary room, working through the nights on pivot charts in Excel with painstakingly acquired data based on the number of scenes Steven Seagal is sitting down throughout each of his movies. Not really a task that gets you laid, I will grant you that, but hey, someone had to do it, right? Right? Someone had to do it. Someone actually had to, right? Someone did have to do this, right?
No wonder.
Please tell me this had to be done, and I just didn't spend the last 6 months working on all of this for no reason whatsoever. There has to be at least one person who can justify my actions. Someone had to do this, right? It wasn't all for nothing. Please tell me it wasn't all for nothing. Right?